This is the lecture for Roderick Chisholm's Human Freedom and the Self. So the first topic is these terms agent causation and event causation and imminent and transient causation. So in the article, Chisholm talks about transient causation, which is when one event or state of affairs or set of events or states of affairs causes some other event or state of affairs. So that's what he calls transient causation. And then he says, I shall say that when an agent, as distinguished from an event, causes an event or state of affairs, then we have an instance of imminent causation. And this is just to say that what he calls imminent and transient causation are often known as agent and event causation in other circumstances. And I think in Paraboom, coming up, we may see agent causation, and maybe he uses both terms, agent and event causation. But whether or not he does that, this is just to help you in case you see these terms elsewhere, and also just because the terms agent causation and event causation are they're kind of better descriptions. Imminent and transient, those words, transient isn't even commonly used in English anymore, and imminent is no longer used in a way that's relevant to this. So those are not very descriptive terms that he uses. These are sort of old Latin things. Agent and event causation are kind of clearer terms. And so this is just to say, if you want, you can call imminent causation agent causation, and you can call transient causation event causation. And in fact, since this reading is from a textbook, there's one of the questions at the end talks about imminent causation, and it labels it agent causation. It's just because that's clearer. Second, in the reading, he introduces two ways of thinking about humans, the Hobbist and the Kantian approach. So the Hobbist approach, he says, is the one that is generally accepted at the present time, but the Kantian approach, I believe, is the one that's true. According to Hobbism, if we know of some man what his beliefs and desires happen to be and how strong they are, if we know what he feels, if we know what he feels certain of, what he desires more than anything else, and if we know that the state of his body and what stimuli he is subjected to, then we may deduce logically just what it is that he will do, or more accurately, just what it is that he will try, set out, or undertake to do. So that's the Hobbist approach. According to the Kantian approach to the problem, and this is the one that I would take, there is no such logical connection between wanting and doing, nor need there even be a causal connection. No set of statements about a man's desires, beliefs, and stimulus situation at any time implies any statement telling us what the man will try, set out, or undertake to do at that time. As Reid put it, though we may reason from men's motives to their actions, and in many cases with great probability, we can never do so with absolute certainty. So one way to think about this is to think first, instead of human beings, to think of like particles or something. With particles, you can set up like a thought experiment, or even if you try pretty hard, like an actual experiment where, if you know of some particle, what its mass and velocity is and what its position is, and, what the other stuff in the vicinity of the particle are, the state of the world and the laws of physics, then we may deduce logically just what it is that the particle will do. So that's how, particles work and things like this, like ordinary physical objects. If you know everything involved in the situation, then you can figure out what it's going to do. That, at least assuming the laws of nature don't change, assuming gravity doesn't shut off or something. And that seems like maybe a pretty safe assumption. And so the question is, are humans like this? Are humans predictable in the same way that, ordinary physical objects are predictable? And the Hobbist says, yes, a human is predictable. If you set up a certain situation and you can specify what the human's internal psychology is and stuff like that, then you can predict with 100% certainty what the human is going to do. You can guarantee it, just like you can guarantee what the particle is going to do. And the Kantian says, no, I mean, you can predict with a high amount of probability. So if you know what's going on in somebody's head, you can be pretty sure what they're going to do. But there's no sort of guarantee in the way that there's a guarantee for like non-human things, in the way that, if a billiard ball is subjected to a certain amount of force and it has a certain mass and whatever. You can guarantee the billiard ball is always going to react the same way. Can you guarantee that a human is always going to react the same way? And so I don't know, like the I don't know what you're inclined uh, towards. As Chisholm puts it, the Hobbist approach is the one that's generally accepted at the present time. Um, Maybe, I don't know, like people disagree about this, but I think he's probably right that it's at least the majority view. But if you're just sort of basing your beliefs on sort of present science or whatever, I think at the very least you would want to be undecided. Certainly, we can't actually predict with 100% certainty what actual human beings are going to do. Science is not there yet. And so this is just to say if you think the Hobbist approach is correct, that's fine. Like he says, most people think the Hobbist approach is correct, but you don't want to think that this is like, whoop, my cat just jumped around. You don't want to think this is like a solved problem in the sense that like science tells us that of course the Hobbist approach is correct, because no, science might tell us that for particles or whatever, but at least so far we are not able to deduce 100% as opposed to with great certainty what a human is going to do. In fact, it's not even clear that we're at a great probability case for sort of most human situations. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. Finally, at some point in the reading, whatever he talks about whether an argument is sound, and so I don't think this has come up in any lecture before. And just to explain what these terms mean, I think maybe they've come up once or twice in some readings, but they haven't been super important. So just to be clear, in philosophy, we talk about arguments as being valid and as being sound. So an argument being valid, you ask yourself, can the conclusion be false while the premises are true? And if the answer is yes, then the argument is invalid. A valid argument is one where if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. So that's what it means for an argument to be valid. For an argument to be sound, it's the argument is valid and the premises are true. So that's validity and soundness. Often introduction to philosophy courses will spend lots and lots of time on these, well, maybe not lots of time, but a decent amount of time on these two terms, and you'll get lots of sample arguments, and you'll try to decide which ones are valid and which ones are sound and which ones are invalid. I don't know. If you're interested, we can talk about this in class or whatever, but I'm not super interested in it, at least in the sense of wanting to spend time in the lecture on it. You can find lots of examples online if you want. But that's validity and soundness, and that's just to help you understand what he means when he talks about whether the argument's sound. And when he asks this, why this explains why he says the conclusion follows from the premises, but the catch I think lies in the first premise. So he's suggesting it's valid, so the conclusion does follow from the premises. If the premises are true, the conclusion can't be false. But then the question is premise number one, is that a true premise? So maybe it's not a sound argument.